There's Yoda, who's using magic for good, and there's Darth Vader, who's using magic for evil purposes.
Welcome to Lead Like a Magician, the show where we dive into the often changing and complex world of leadership with your host, Braden Daniels. Braden has traveled the globe educating and amazing business teams with his thought-provoking keynotes and workshops. Our host brings over 20 years of leadership experience and knowledge to help you demystify your leadership so you can empower your team to success. Get ready to take a journey of growth and insight as we unlock the secrets of leadership with the thought leader, mind reader himself, Braden Daniels.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Lead Like a Magician, where we discuss a wide range of leadership topics to help you grow your mindset and your skill set. I'm Braden Daniels, your guide on the journey to effective leadership, and today's topic we will talk about and explore how to lead like a magician. And what does it mean to lead like a magician? One aspect of that phrase, leading like a magician, has the word magician in it. And what do we mean by magician? Now, when you bring your mind to the concept of a magician, just your everyday mind to the concept of a magician, what does that mean to you? For some of us, it means an entertainer. For others, it means like a wizard in a movie. And there's two distinctions between that. One is an entertainer, and one is a figure that transforms. So one is entertainment, and one is transformational. And we'll be discussing the magician archetype today. Now, if you look at the word lead, obviously if you were to lead somebody, you are guiding them along a path. And that's what a magician does. If we think about the foundation of a magician in popular culture, we're talking about a Yoda, an Obi-Wan Kenobi type figure, a Gandalf, a Dumbledore, a Merlin, the fairy godmother in Cinderella. These are these archetypal figures, which is a pattern, an underlying pattern of a character type that is used in story and is very ancient and comes from a very, very long time ago. And so if we think about that archetype, we can think about how the magician figure operates and applying that to our leadership. Now, to take it a step further, you have the word lead in lead like a magician. Lead can be to lead people. It can also be spelt the same way, but pronounced slightly differently as the word lead, as in the heavy metal lead. And what we talk about when we talk about lead like a magician, we talk about taking the lead out of our leadership. The ancient alchemists would talk about how they can transform lead into gold. And that's exactly what a magician does. At least the archetype of the magician, the metaphor of the magician, which is what we use when we talk about leadership principles here at Lead Like a Magician. Now, these archetypes of the magician come from they're very ancient, they come from tribes. Their magicians have been part of the way of culture for centuries. And the interesting part of that is there are magician figures like shamans that have been found in various cultures throughout the world, in Siberia, South America, in America, all over the world, in all sorts of different cultures, there's this magician figure. And there wasn't a convention of magicians. There wasn't a shaman convention. They couldn't all just get together and discuss what they were doing. So how do these independent cultures, as they existed, all have this type of figure in their community? And so it's a very powerful archetype when you start to think about it and you start to realize that the magician is really the guide for the hero. And a hero is another archetype. Now, these archetypes come from Carl Jung's work in the collective unconscious. Also, Carol Pearson has done work on the archetypes in her in her seminal work, The Hero Within, and she explores other archetypes like the caregiver archetype or the ruler archetype. Now, these archetypes have light and shadow to them. There's good and evil, if you will, so they're great characters for story. When you look at Star Wars and you look at what they call the Force, which is essentially magic, there's Yoda, who's using magic for good, and there's Darth Vader, who's using magic for evil purposes. So the darker side of it and the lighter side of it. So that's kind of where this whole magician archetype kind of comes from. Now, how does a magician compare to a leader? Or how does a leader compare to a magician? Well, one of the things that leaders do, that magicians do, is they walk between worlds. Leaders, like magicians, go between different worlds. A magician can travel into different areas. They can get into using magic or secret knowledge. They can get into different areas and different aspects of their environment. And this is helpful on their journey. And leaders can do that as well, because leaders travel between their employees' world and the boardroom's world, or their corporate leader's world. They also travel between their employees' world and their customers' world. And leaders travel between worlds or between departments. You might be a leader of sales, but you also have to talk and communicate with the marketing department or the finance department. And you have to be able to do that in a way that is tactful and is collaborative. And so as a leader, you walk between these worlds. It might not be a world that you inhabit on a daily basis, but at some point you have to walk between those worlds. And that's exactly what magicians have to do. Now, magicians are also guides. And one view of leadership should be, I think, and this is what we'll talk about and explore a lot on this podcast, is the fact that as a leader, you should be a guide for your employees, not the hero. They should be the hero of their journey. Your customers should be the hero of their journey. And you as a leader should be a guide helping them along the process. So that's kind of a key principle. Now, we all know Mickey Mouse was in a popular show called Fantasia. And in it, he was the sorcerer's apprentice. And this is a great image to recall. And if you haven't seen it, it's a short clip. But basically, Mickey is set out to, by his sorcerer, as part of his training, to fetch water from the well. Now, Mickey has been given some responsibility, but he hasn't really trained on all of the powers that it would be to be a sorcerer of his magical spells. But that doesn't stop him to going to the well and trying to use what little magic he knows to, well, have the broomsticks do the work for him. So he casts a spell on the broomsticks, and they animate, and he then casts another spell and gets them to walk 2 by 2 with pails of waters. They sprout hands. They can grab pails of water, and they can go to the well and clean the well out of water. But soon this becomes uncontrollable because, like leadership and like new leaders, often you're given an opportunity to lead a team, but you may not be trained on how to lead that team. Just like Mickey wasn't really trained in all of the powers that he had. And so mistakes happen, accidents happen, and you start to realize how little training you have in that area. In the case of Mickey, the broomsticks went on to continue to take water out, but eventually he went outside and realized that they were making a flood of the entire land, to the point that the whole land became an ocean. And this can happen to you as a leader in your department or your team if you don't have the proper training. So that's what this podcast is about, is to talk about all the different aspects of leadership. And as we go from week to week, we'll explore different areas of leadership. Now, Mickey's powers weren't fully developed. And that's what we're talking about, developing our powers. Now, if we take the magician as an archetype, one of the facets that not a lot of people realize, but you do see this play out. You see it play out in Star Wars, you see it play out in Lord of the Rings, in Harry Potter. The magician archetype has access to all of the elements. And what I'm talking about are air, fire, earth, and water. Those 4 major elements. Now, on the surface, you think, well, what does that matter? But when it comes to leadership, it matters a lot because those same elements are the elements of your leadership. So as a leader, air is communication. Without air, without oxygen, you won't be able to breathe, you won't be able to live. The same thing is true for your team or your organization. Without oxygen, without communication, your team won't be able to thrive and really be successful. Also, fire is discipline. Without discipline in your team or in yourself, self-discipline, it's really hard to get the things that you want to accomplish done. And I say that because we're living a time where there's so much expected of you as a leader. There's so much expected of you as an organization, and there's a lot that's really riding on your success each year. We're not just talking about somebody who is in a role that's just going to coast year to year. That's not how business operates in 2023. There has to be growth. There has to be transformation. There's that word again, because organizations are looking for transformation. So they're looking for what a magician does, and that's what you're there to do. So being disciplined is a big part of that. So that's fire. We also have water, which is, if you think of the properties of water, it's very reflective. So self-reflection is a big part of what you need to do as a leader, getting feedback, really listening and taking in as much information as you can, and really understanding when you're being autocratic in your style, which is to say that you are controlling everything, you're making all the decisions, and you're not really taking in a lot of information that could actually help you if you listened. So self-reflection is a big part of it, understanding your strengths and weaknesses. So that's water. And of course we have earth, which if you think about earth, if we didn't have the earth, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be able to sit in this chair. I wouldn't be able to rest on this table. We wouldn't have anything to support us. There'd be no support. So earth is the element when it comes to leadership of support and mentorship. And that's a huge opportunity to explore as we go through these next few episodes. But those are the elements of leadership. If you combine all of them, you get the 5th element, which is your leadership spirit. And so we talked about a lot today. It's time for our takeaway, which is a few key insights from today's discussion that you can take away and implement in your thinking immediately. The first is, as a leader, remember that you are the magician, not the hero. Your employees, your customers are the hero. And the second takeaway from this conversation today is we must develop our leadership skills. We can't be like Mickey and pick up the sorcerer's hat, put it on, and think that we are the sorcerer and can do all of these wonderful things. We have to actually learn, train, apprentice, continue to grow, because as the world turns, as technology changes, which is changing every day, we have to be ready for that, and continually improving is really a key thing. So we must continue to develop our own leadership skills. That would be my second takeaway. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Like a Magician. If you found value in this discussion, please share with a fellow leader. If you'd like to bring the entertaining and educating Lead Like a Magician keynote and workshop to your team, just shoot me an email. It's Braden@BradenDaniels.com. That's Braden, B-R-A-D-E-N, @BradenDaniels.com. And you can get in touch with me there. Until next time, remember, lead like a magician.